Hello, everyone. This is Eric, and I am starting the September 8th Product and Design weekly meeting for the Static Site Editor group, and nothing to call out specifically. I've been doing a lot of talking on these weekly calls, so I thought maybe I'd turn it over to Michael first for any design updates, not to put you on the spot, but I don't have much on my agenda, and I was curious what you had this week.
Yeah, so category maturity testing's been really interesting. It's going really well, actually. So we have one more right after this call, and then I think the next one scheduled is for like next week, and that's it. So next week we can wrap things up. I think the key thing for the session next week is it'll be run by yourself, Eric, and we'll just take the scores and the times from that to like add it to the average. Overall, it's been a good learning experience for me because some of the people we talk to actually don't use the static site editor usually, or like is their first time seeing it. So just discovering things on the sidebar or like where it is like a good eye-opening experience. So that's good. With editing front matter, we ran that solution validation as an unmoderated testing. The platform we used was a little bit tricky to use, but 3 out of the 5 people were able to use it. The other 2, I'm doing like one-on-one calls to get the feedback. So that's a win for both us with the solution validation, but also like the UX research team for their kind of research on what tools to use as we move forward with like scaling out solution validation through unmoderated research, which is good. The feedback from there is useful. I haven't had time to deep dive and like actually analyze it properly, but I'll look to do that by the end of this week. And I think this segues really nicely into one of the talking points that you have this week is like, the next block of things that we need to validate and move forward towards 13.5, 13.6. One thing that I am looking at, I'm just going to share my screen right now because I think it's useful just for this discussion is that I'm just going to share my screen now. Cool. Almost pressed the wrong button. So you should see Figma on my screen right now. I'll just make it bigger. So at the moment, our kind of page looks like this with the title, the text area, and at the moment we have this bottom footer bar. Part of the next round of solution validation is actually sticking to the bottom footer bar right now because most of this designs that I've had so far has this bar at the top. But at this moment, like my initial intent of it was this bar takes over this whole GitLab navigation, but I don't think we have a strong stance or a strong position or rationale to take it over completely. So as part of the next iterations for solution validation, I'm going to test it with the links at the bottom. So all these things, rather than being at the top in the other designs so far, it's going to be at the bottom just to see how that goes, just to keep that going. Because whatever the interaction is, whether it's a panel, a drawer that pops out, or a modal, it's independent of wherever this toolbar is located. So I'm okay with that until we have a better rationale for completely taking over the navigation or like just moving it at the top. So at the moment, so my next round of iterations that's looking at the publishing flow will keep the button at the bottom just for the sake of not too many changes going on, and just to keep me grounded in current reality. Otherwise, I'm like deviating way too far from where the whole rest of the team and the product is, where everything's still at the bottom. So that's what I'm looking at. And what I'm looking at is, going through this, cleaning up the publishing flow. I didn't have a really productive week last week, so I'm looking at tackling some of that this week.
That's great. Yeah, I'm really curious to see how that goes in the testing. I like that a lot. Actually, when I saw it, I immediately jumped to the possibilities for that, based on some of the discussions. Actually, Derek, you were talking about in an issue, I believe, about accordion, revealing different options and things like that. That bar on the bottom, to me, maybe feels a little more natural if it grew the space underneath and showed more options. I'll let you continue to explore that, but that was my natural instinct, was like, if we need to reveal more about the actions or the status of a build or an MR detail or something like that, that bar could grow and it would feel maybe a little more natural than trying to push the whole editor down and make room between the two bars or something like that. But yeah, I'm interested to see. I like that approach and sounds good. And that does segue well into my only topic that I wanted to discuss in real at length, which is just as we get closer to making a decision, it seems like we're very likely going to re-architect the WYSIWYG editor, which gives us an opportunity to address a bunch of issues, which I brought up in the call earlier today. And I know, Michael, you saw the issue I created that's just kind of a list of paper cuts and feature gaps and other types of just little bugs that are inherent in the Toast UI library. So things like the cursor that jumps to the bottom of the page as you switch between modes, between WYSIWYG and Markdown mode, or the extra line break that we've found a way to overcome, but it's just kind of a bug with Toast UI. So I'm trying to collect those as a way to quantify some of the changes that will be resolved by switching to a different editor, without necessarily making that the exclusive reason, but saying that by moving to this editor, we're getting a block editing experience where these are all hypothetical. I'm not, the architecture is still being defined, but we're able to use editor Lite as our code source editor. And, we have an easier path towards extensibility for other static site generators. Plus these dozen bugs are resolved in this other editing experience, right? I think to wrap a bow around that story and tell that over the coming months, it'd be great to, once we've identified which editor will be the one that we move forward with, to take whatever the out of the box features are and apply our take on it and get a good prototype and a good set of Figma files that we can share around and what that would look like. And so I think testing this early is a great idea that we can apply towards the inevitable new editor, version 2, whatever we want to call it, and say that's probably our best opportunity to make these larger UX changes and make it feel natural. And I was talking to Jean about this as far as planning and sequencing, and I think what we're looking at is 13.5 is still wrapping up work on some of the bugs in Toast UI and some of the features that we are going to be implementing, like the image upload and YouTube video embeds. Then 13.6, 13.7 would mostly be re-architecture, and then 13.8 would likely, if all goes well, we're not holding anybody to it, but ideally that's around when we'd be able to start at least beta testing behind a feature flag for the new editor.
Cool. um, what I was going to chime in with, once we identify the framework or library that we want to use, in addition, or maybe even potentially instead of using like a clickable prototype, since we're getting into more like high fidelity interactions, if we're doing more like more interaction based things, perhaps it's worth like creating like prototypes in code using the editor itself so that we can kick the tires. So I can do a little bit, but it might be something that I would need like engineering time just to like create like something like a prototype, like throwaway code. So we're not looking for like full like test coverage or anything like that, or good structure. It's just like something scrappy to get testing going. That could be something that once we identify the library or framework, then we can like think about the best things that we want to test from it, and then perhaps allocating some time from engineering to help out with that.
Yeah, that's a good call. I think that'd probably be something we'd fit into 13.6 as we start implementation. And I know that at least right now, Enrique's been kind of tagged to do that initial architecture and implementation. So that might be part of it, just like a proof of concept that we can have as a little sandbox, and maybe carve out a little extra time for some additional styling and make it a little more polished so that we can take it to testing. Yeah, I think that's a good call.
The other comment I had on that is, in addition to the paper cuts, maybe if you could dig up the list of criteria that we had when we originally picked Toast UI, why we liked it, and what features we thought it gave to us, and list those out also as the criteria for choosing whatever we do instead.
Yeah, that's good. Obviously, it wasn't an issue, so I will find it. It's somewhere and probably in our category maturity for minimal, so it's linked there. Yeah, and you know, since these videos get posted and we're talking about this openly to the public, I do want to make it clear that Toast UI worked really well for us to get our initial validation, and there are requirements that we're gathering, things that we're discovering about the different use cases we want to solve that it's just not flexible enough for. So it's not inherently it wasn't inherently the wrong platform choice. It's just probably not the platform that we want to build the next couple years on. So at least that's my understanding.
Yeah, I think that's a great analysis, basically.
Cool. Well, yeah, I don't have anything else to specifically call out. This week I'll be working on a lot of 13.5 planning and issue refinement. I don't have a specific like area of issues that I'm trying to go through, but anything that's related to the editor experience or link to from our direction page would be the ones I'd start with first. I still have on my radar to go back through and do some housekeeping on the handbook epics. So Chad, I haven't forgotten about that, but it just keeps getting bumped. So I will give them some attention.
I think Jean did a pass, and they're in a lot better shape than they were.
They are.
We're mostly clear on what we need to do next.
Yeah, and absolutely for since he can't join us, I will thank him on the record for doing that. And yeah, I think making sure that our maturity epics are squared away, because we also, I guess, should highlight and talk about for Michael that we had our first community contribution. And so I think the further we can get ahead with our direction items, the more likely we're able to flag issues that would be well suited for community contributions. And I think extensibility across other static site generators or markdown flavors or you know, renderers of any kind or things like that would be prime candidates for that. So I want to try and get those issues created as soon as possible, and as soon as practical. Like I don't know that it's necessary until maybe 13.8 when we have a new editor that we're really going to push too hard on that. But of course, we like to see contributions at any time. Derek and Chad, did you have anything you wanted to bring up? I appreciate you joining, by the way, as always.
No.
Nothing from my end. I mean, one thing that comes to mind, it's probably obvious, I guess, but Michael, your comment about getting some engineering effort, I'm sure there's obviously two core divides, right? It's like the editor itself and the tool we use to actually create the AST. That's the difference. Whereas Toast UI had those glued together, we now actually want those separate, is kind of the highest level architectural decision change. So in terms of the editor itself, just like Toast UI, there's going to be probably sandboxes that we can, you know, we can play with. The only difference now is maybe some of the things we've learned with Toast UI that ended up being shortcomings, we can now, you know, drill on the editor a little bit harder, basically with that context. So that's basically it.
Yes, exactly. Cool. Thanks.
And if it comes to it, I can brush off some of my CSS and help style something up so it looks nice. But I guarantee it won't be as efficient as what our front-end engineers can put out. So yeah, all right. Well, if that's it, I'll wrap the recording. And yeah, thanks a lot, everyone.